We're currently at 7 billion people on the planet. It's predicted to be up at 9 billion people in 2050. So it's growing quite rapidly, and as that happens, we're going to need more protein, and that protein is going to come from fish. There's no doubt about it. We cannot produce the protein we need in land-based systems. We don't have the land available, and we don't have the fresh water available to be able to produce that. So future protein, both plant and animal, is going to come from the sea. And so where is that going to come from? It's going to come from, hopefully, sustainable aquaculture. And mullet should be a part of that. It's a wonderful fish to eat. It is low on the trophic level in terms of what we need to feed it. So we can feed it a diet that is much less expensive to produce. And when you're feeding it this commercial diet, you can have all this great enhancement to it with algae, which will make it a really sustainable seafood source. One of the things that we really need in this country is to produce more of the seafood that we consume. Today, we import over 91% of the seafood that we eat. That imported seafood is coming from both commercial fishing and aquaculture, but today, over 50% of the seafood that's eaten around the world is produced in aquaculture. And yet, in our country, we're currently only producing about 5% of the aquacultured seafood that's consumed. So what we really need to do is look at opportunities to produce more seafood in our own country for local consumption. So say a fish like mullet could be produced in both ways. We could increase the stocks and fish more and provide more of that fish as part of the seafood that's consumed here in Florida. A great fish. It's a local species. It's available in our waters, but there isn't a lot of it available on our current restaurant menus, mostly because the main species that you see out there are the ones that are cultured in countries around the world and then imported into our country. The biggest examples are salmon and tilapia. Both of those fish, 99% of them are produced in aquaculture and imported into the United States, and they're on every restaurant menu that you would go to see. The other thing is that we could aquaculture mullet. That's another opportunity for Florida farms as well as other places in the southeastern U.S. where they could produce those fish in hatcheries and then stock them into ponds and grow them out for market. In the U.S., we've resisted the development of aquaculture because first, we aren't a fish-eating nation, and because second, we're concerned about the environmental impacts. But aquaculture in the ocean is moving in new directions, and it's a real exciting direction. One of them is offshore aquaculture, and they use these huge ocean cages, and they're producing a variety of different fishes that way. The prediction is that in the future that 75, 80, maybe even 90% of the seafood that's consumed worldwide will be produced in aquaculture. And the reason is our population is growing, and our commercial fisheries can only support the same level of fishing that they support today in the future. We call it the maximum sustainable yield for commercial fishing. We reached that in the 1990s, and we reached it at 90 million metric tons. And so that is the largest amount of commercial fishing that can happen without depleting the wild fisheries. We see that there have been a variety of different impacts that have happened on wild fisheries due to human population growth. Everything from industrial pollution to things like the oil spill that happened in 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico. So those sorts of things impact wild fisheries, and we don't know to what extent those fisheries will continue to be able to be maintained at that 90 million metric ton level. We certainly hope it will. But even if we could do that, our population is growing.